Okay, so we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 14, text number 22. Yep, okay. Okay, so we have that on the screen. So maybe if we could put 22 on the screen. So this is this chapter is entitled "The Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening." You know, before we get to this chapter, I just want to say what a pleasure it is to be with all of you at the Lotus Feet of Sri Radha Govinda and Srila Prabhupada. And yeah, we haven't been to New York for some time, so it feels like a reunion. Okay, so good. We have text 22 on the screen. Atapi kamametam te prajatye karavan yalam yatamam natirochanti muhurtam pratipalaya ata api, even though it is not possible. Kamam, this sex desire. Etam, as it is. Te, your. Prajatye, for the sake of children. Karavani, let me do. Alam, without delay. Yata, as. Mam, unto me. Na, may not. Atirochanti, reproach. Muhuratam, a few seconds. Pratipalaya, wait for. Translation in purple by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay. Even though it is not possible to repay you. So this is Kasyapa Muni speaking to Diti. Even though it is not possible to repay you, I shall satisfy your sex desire immediately for the sake of begetting children. But you must wait for only a few seconds so that others may not reproach me. Purple. The henpecked husband may not be able to repay his wife for all the benefits that he derives from her. But as for begetting children by fulfilling sexual desire, it is not at all difficult for any husband unless he is thoroughly impotent. This is a very easy task for a husband under normal conditions. In spite of Kasyapa's being very eager, he requested her to wait for a few seconds so that others may not reproach him. He explains his position as follows. An interesting section in the Bhagavatam. Okay. So in this section of the Bhagavatam, Diti has approached her husband. She has that desire for union with her husband. And her husband is actually telling her, let us just wait a while. Okay? And then he'll go on to explain about the importance of timing. That if this union takes place at an inauspicious time, there'll be some kind of negative outcome. Okay? It's very, very interesting. There's a contrast. There are many contrasts in the Bhagavatam. But in this area of the Bhagavatam, there is a contrast between Kasyapa Muni and Diti, and that is contrasted with Kardama Muni and Devahuti. There's a contrast in terms of the dynamics of their interaction, and therefore there's a huge contrast in the outcomes that they achieve. Okay. So, through the interactions that we have, there is a very, very powerful outcome. The interactions are like the seed. The outcome is the fruit. So in any situation in life, how we deal, especially the mentality behind how we deal, determines the particular outcome. Now, this should not be a surprise to those who are familiar with the Bhagavatam. But unfortunately, we live in a world where there is so much immaturity that people don't even understand this basic point. Right? Because in the modern world, there is the idea that I can do whatever I want and get whatever outcome I want. And that is childish. Everyone can do whatever they want, but this entire material world, this works under Krishna's direction. You see? We cannot break the laws of Krishna. We can only break ourselves against the laws of Krishna. Devyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. Mamevaye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Krishna makes this point very clearly. This divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome. And he's being kind. He says difficult. Actually, he means it's absolutely impossible. But he says, those who surrender unto me, prapadyante mayam etam tarantite, they can overcome it very easily. And this is the hope for every single devotee. Maya is stronger than any one of us, but Maya has a boss. The material world means one thing. The material world means one thing. The material world means the question of sex desire. Right? What to do about it, how to deal with it, how to navigate it. Where does it even come from? Kama esha, krodha esha. In the Bhagavad Gita, in one purport, Prabhupada makes the point very nicely. Right? There's really love of Krishna. Hare Krishna Maharaj. There's really love of Krishna. But when that love of Krishna comes into contact with the modes of material nature, it temporarily takes on the form of lust. What does that mean? It means that we all want pleasure. Right? You see, if you actually explore the material world very, very carefully, you'll find that everything traces back to these teachings. These teachings are so powerful, they can literally tell you everything about human psychology, everything about human interactions, everything about all types of society and where that society is going. For example, in the modern world, when people watch the television and see things on the big screen, what is it? Sex and violence. Sex and violence means what? Right? Violence means control, sex means enjoy. So these are all manifestations of the same first issue. Bhumya ponalavaya, kamana buddhyevacha, ahankrityami bina prakriti ashtada. These elements, ahankara, especially this false ego. And why is it that we're trying to control and enjoy? Because we don't understand that we will be more happy if we surrender to the supreme controller and the supreme enjoyer. So what is this Krishna consciousness? Krishna consciousness is the endeavor to show you how to enjoy properly in your constitutional position of surrender. So at a certain level of experience, someone becomes sane enough to understand that I have to surrender. In fact, there's no other option. For example, right now, our bodies are growing older. True? It's not something that's optional. It just happens. We experience at various points in our life disease, right? So we've just had these 2 years, this global pandemic. Right? No one wanted it. Everyone had to experience it. So when we talk about there being a supreme controller, it's not a philosophical idea. It is just a description of the reality. And this is what Krishna consciousness is. It's actually, we are being faced with the same dilemma that Arjuna was facing. So Krishna tells Arjuna everything, so many teachings. Now he says, all right, now Arjuna, now you've understood the reality. What do you want to do? Right? And that's our biggest issue. Our biggest issue is that we, as a modern human society, we're in denial. The first sign of danger is the inability to accept the reality. And we've all seen it. You sometimes go into a situation, you have a friend, there's something going on, maybe there's, their friendship circle, someone is not treating them properly, and you're like, are you okay with this? Like, it seems that these people don't deal with you properly. And say, oh, no, you don't understand, we're all, we all have a little bit of banter, we're all friends. Like, really? Are you sure? But you can look at it objectively and you can understand, no, that's definitely not what's going on, right? These people are definitely mistreating this particular person, but he's in denial. And because he's in denial, because he's, this ignorance, because he's ignorant of the reality, the whole situation is going to play out badly in the long term. Right? Here, Kashyapa Muni, he's saying, Devahuti, he's saying to Diti, let us wait. And he actually has all these good reasons. He'll go on to talk about Lord Shiva, and this is very, very interesting also, that there is a specific time where Lord Shiva is passing by with his followers, right? And who are his followers? Ghosts, right? All types of entities in the mode of ignorance. And he's saying, let us wait, but she doesn't wait. And so it's not one person. She insists and he gives in. Right? Now this is an archetype for every one of us. The insistence of temptation or the material energy and the weakness of the living entity. So you say, oh, well, it's just her fault. Well, no, it's also his fault. He gave in. So this is what's going on. And it's very interesting because this particular pastime and what happens here is indicative of Kali Yuga. Right? So this idea that I can do whatever I want, that's true. But the idea that I can get whatever result that I want, that's false. Everything is working under Krishna's instructions, under Krishna's laws. So if you follow the laws, great. More freedom. You're in a prison and you follow the laws. You're in a prison. What does it mean to follow the laws in the prison? It means that you're indicating that you're reformed. Right? The prisoner is in the prison. He or she is following the laws. They're indicating I'm reformed. That means they're going to get out very, very soon. Then you have the flip side. You're in the prison and you're committing criminal acts even in the prison. Right? What are they going to do? They're going to extend your sentence. Two things. One, your sentence is going to get extended. Two, you get moved from one prison to another prison, right? High security, maximum security. So you had full freedom, then criminal activity. Then you had restriction because of that behavior. But then even with the restriction, you act badly, therefore even more restriction. 8,400,000 species of life. From the demigods through to the human beings, through to the animal species, all the way down to the trees, etc. So the material body is like a different type of prison. So this is actually how the world works. The world works by Krishna's direction. Krishna rules everything around me. This is how it works. So in devotional service, our sanity and our sobriety is to understand Krishna's direction. I was in Gita Nagari recently, and we were giving a class and we were talking about this particular point. If we're honest, we see in our lives in so many ways Krishna's extended hand. He's trying to give us some direction. Right? One of the most important things to know about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one of the most important things to know about Krishna, about Radha Govinda, is how much they love you. Why is that important to know? It is because the more you understand their love for you, their good intention, the the more you're able to surrender to their direction. Right? You may have noticed in Kali Yuga, people have an issue with authority. Ever seen that happen? Right? Yeah. A big issue with authority. The moment someone has some position of authority, everyone shuts down. I'm going to do my own thing. Right? I'm an individual. Right? I can do whatever I like. But what we don't understand is there is the reflection of authority and there is actual authority. In the spiritual system, when someone is senior to you, then you're the center of their focus, right? So for the devotees, Krishna is the center, right? Radha Govinda are the center for the devotees. For Radha Govinda, who's the center? The devotees are the center for Radha Govinda. You see, it works perfectly. Krishna, he wants to, we call him Bhakta Vatsal. He wants to serve his devotee. He relishes serving his devotees. And his devotees relish his service. You'll see this subtle difference between the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and most other religions. Most other religions, the idea is that God's in the center and that's the end of the story and you better do what he likes or he's going to mess you up, man. He's going to mess you up real bad, right? But that's not the case in Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, yayatamam prapadyate, tamsatevi bhajamiham mama vatmanivatati manutsya pavasavashaha. Krishna says, as you surrender unto me, I reward you accordingly. That means it's reciprocal. The relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is in one sense reciprocal, and in another sense it's competitive. Right? In the spiritual world, the devotees are constantly trying to see who can be more loving, kind, and selfless in their service to Krishna. And guess what? Krishna always wins. This is the spiritual culture that we've aligned to if we have the eyes to see. If we have the intelligence to understand that everything in these literatures, everything in these scriptures, they're given for our benefit. Right? When Krishna tells us to surrender, Sarvadhamam parityaja, mamekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarva papebhyo, moksha yeshyami masucha. When he says surrender, it's for our benefit. Because we have these three modes of material nature which are playing with the living entity. When I was in Gita Nagari, so I came yesterday to New York, and the first thing that struck me was just how intense New York is. Right? It's so intense. London's intense, but wow, New York takes it to another level. Right? London's, you think London's intense, and then you go to New York and think, okay, it's not that bad. Okay? New York is intense. Yeah, but still, it's a very wonderful thing because Radha Govinda are here and they're in charge actually. Faith means to understand that if I do what I'm meant to be doing, then the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, the Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes, the actual controller, he will take care of me. We can always reflect on the journey of Srila Prabhupada to come to the West. Prabhupada comes with nothing, 2 heart attacks en route. In fact, if you read Lamrita, there are times with Prabhupada, he actually says he was thinking of he went to the docks, he was thinking of returning back to India. He told Tamal Krishna Maharaj later on, he said that first year when no one was listening, I realized later on that Krishna was just preparing me for what lay ahead, and that's our journey. So we have to have this faith that if I surrender to Krishna, if I do what Krishna says, not just what Krishna says, I do what Krishna says in the way that Krishna says, then all kinds of amazing outcomes are there. Right? You sometimes have devotees, they have the form of the devotion, but they don't have the substance of the devotion. Right? So we're doing all the right things in the wrong way. You ever seen that happen? Right? Right? I'm doing Sankirtan, but I'm going to literally beat you up if you don't take my book and give me a donation. right? But I think I'm gonna spread the mission, man. I'm gonna really, we're gonna be used as an instrument. Everyone's gonna bow down because, I'm threatening them on Sankirtan, right? Or we're giving class. When I first came to Krishna consciousness, there were some classes, and it was like, it was like the antidote to inspiration. Yeah, so like that. If you feel inspired in Krishna consciousness, don't worry. We'll get that out of you very quick. So I won't mention where that class came from. But the antidote to inspiration. So we have to do the right thing in the right way. Why? Because Krishna says this, Bhavagrahi Janardana. Prabhupada actually often quotes that point, that Krishna accepts the essence of a devotee's service. So, Anyabilasata Shunyam, Jnana Karmadana Vritam Anukulena Krishna Nushilanam Bhakti Uttama. It's not just an activity, right? It's an activity done for Krishna's pleasure, done favorably for Krishna's pleasure. Free of our own selfish desires for karma and jnana. How is that possible? How is that possible for a living entity who's conditioned in this world to do an activity like that? You have to feel a sense that this person has my best interests at heart. You have to actually have that sense. You have to have that sense that this person, he knows better than I do what's good for me. Right? So there has to be a relationship. There has to be trust. That means Shraddha. That means faith. This Sanskrit word Shraddha, it means literally the place where the heart finds shelter. Right? And it's a real science. Because what it means is, whatever you see people put their time, energy, and their heart into, it doesn't matter what they say. Whatever they put their time, energy, and their heart into, that's where the person's faith is. And they may not even be aware of it. Aware, unaware, doesn't matter. You want to know where your faith is? Look at your life. Look at where you put your time, energy, and your endeavor. That's what you have faith in. So this is a real science. We're often those people, pasyana pina pasyati. We're those people who see but we don't see. And that's why in Kali Yuga, there's a huge amount of lack of self-awareness. And that indicates people who are incoherent. And that's also interesting, because this science is so deep that if you cultivate the hearing of the Bhagavatam, if you cultivate the process, this Nava Anga Bhakti properly, one of the side effects is that you become more integrated as an individual. You become coherent. We say this word integrity. That means everything is integrous. There's an alignment between what I say, what I do. There's an alignment between what I think, what I feel, and how I act. And the more that we are in alignment, the more powerful you become as an individual. Yeah? Everyone in this Kali Yuga, we're having this discord. Right? So we're kind of splayed out. I think one thing, I feel something else, I do something else. But this teaching will bring us into alignment. And when we are in alignment, we'll have integrity. Integrity means we'll follow with head, heart, and hand. I understand the philosophy, head. I do it with the proper mood of compassion, the mood of devotion, heart. And these align and they express themselves through some actual service, hand. So we are very, very lucky in this movement, because someone has knocked on our door and someone has interfered with our material karma. That someone is His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. At the same time, because this purport is speaking about husband and wife. At the same time, this Krishna consciousness we should know to be a journey. Right? There are so many issues that so many devotees have because we forget that it's a journey. And why is it important to remember that it's a journey? Because when you understand it's a journey, then you understand that the application of Krishna consciousness is meant to be done in a particular way according to where you are on the journey. Okay? What did Prabhupada say? I mean, Prabhupada first of all says so many things, right? And this is why I'm emphasizing this journey part. Because if you don't understand that it's a journey, then you don't understand which aspects of the teachings are relevant for you at that time. Yeah, Prabhupada made a very interesting statement. He said, do not try to be more of a Paramahamsa than me. Isn't that interesting? I'm sure many of us have seen that. You've seen devotees and they're definitely trying to be more of a Paramahamsa than Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. There's a real science to this. The teachings are so powerful, but where we often have issues as a movement is not the teaching. It is the application of the teaching. Right? Because I don't understand the teaching properly, I misapply it. There was a time in our movement where everyone thought, well, we're going to get married. Okay, I chant 16 rounds, she chants 16 rounds. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Really? You think so? Good luck. Right? I had to tell I told one devotee recently, you're not marrying her japa. Right? You understand? Yeah? Because what we're forgetting is that ashram means that we're engaging some aspect of our conditioned nature. Right? And we should understand that. And it's just a reality. Nothing wrong with that. It's something for the journey. When I was young, I remember when I was learning to ride a bike. So I was getting really excited. I had like my first BMX bike, 2 wheels, fantastic. My parents put some stabilizers on the bike. Right? Because we know what you're like, right? We're going to put some stabilizers. We don't want to go to hospital, right? Because you're going to probably just fall over. They put some stabilizers on the bike. So in one sense, I'm riding the bike. In another sense, I'm riding it with support. So in one sense, you could say 2 wheels. Absolutely. On another level, those stabilizers, there's actually 4 wheels there. You're getting some support to make that particular endeavor. Yeah? And every ashram has that dynamic. Right? There's a certain design of each particular stage in life so that we can engage in this journey of Krishna consciousness in a healthy way. One of my friends asked the question of Radha Maharaj. We were at Bhaktivedanta Manor in Prabhupada's darshan room. And we were just talking about this idea of engaging in Krishna consciousness and doing it in a way that's actually most supportive of us. And Radha Maharaj talked about the different ashrams and they are supports for our journey in devotion. And then he said to my friend, he said, so use your prop properly. Learn to use your prop properly. Right? So, this is actually the point. When we see so many challenges to a superficial, on a superficial reading, we could say, oh, does this really work? This Krishna consciousness? I've seen so many devotees and this is happening and that's happening. You look a bit deeper, it's not the Krishna consciousness. Okay, how was that Krishna consciousness applied? How was that Krishna consciousness engaged? For example, we just had this youth retreat. And I'll be honest, I couldn't help thinking, wow, these young people, they're so powerful. I'm just watching them and just looking at the way they're speaking and interacting, serving, I'm thinking, these people are so powerful. Why is it that they're not flourishing even more? And then, I'm speaking to some of them and they're telling me about how they've been, how they've been interacted with. And I was like, really? And I was thinking, what does a young person need? A young person, it's the nature of a young person, they need fun experiences. They need education. They need to learn. They need to grow. They need to explore because that is the nature of youth. You understand the point? It's not a question of what you think young people should do. That potency of youth, that comes from Krishna. Right? Another Yovanam. He's eternally youthful. That potency of youth, that comes from Krishna. So that youthful tendency, it works according to how Krishna says it works. It's not just we brought them up like this or like that. It doesn't matter how you bring them up. That's the nature of a young person. They have certain inherent patterns which are coming from Krishna's own potency. So what we're meant to do is engage those tendencies in Krishna consciousness. They need education, yes. So let's educate them in a fun way about the teachings. They need to explore. So let's give them various opportunities to explore different aspects of Krishna consciousness. They need to question and understand. So let's give them many opportunities. Not dogma. No dogma. But let's give them many opportunities to hear the teachings, hear it from different angles of vision. Let them ask questions. Let them express doubts. So you have to give them the Krishna consciousness according to the nature of a young person. Then the whole thing works amazingly. Someone else is a grahasta. Okay, what are they going to be dealing with? They've got careers, they've got children. Okay, so let's give them Krishna consciousness in a way that actually recognizes and facilitates that. Let's help them to understand, okay, you're coming to a program, there's a facility here, your children can come. Oh my God, I can come and listen to the class without having to look after the kids at the same time. This must be heaven. Right? So many things. You give them the Krishna consciousness according to the nature of their situation. Right? Then you can sustain it. You see? That's actually how it works. So it's not something airy-fairy, it's something practical. You have to take the teachings and see, how do I take the prescription according to my actual situation? Yeah? Not according to someone else's. And it's interesting. Some of the teachings in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, where Krishna tells Arjuna, better to perform your own duty than another's, because to follow another's path is dangerous. We can therefore say, better to apply Krishna consciousness according to your actual situation. Not that you try to apply Krishna consciousness according to someone else's situation. Right? The doctor's given you one prescription, they've given the other patient a different prescription. Don't switch the prescriptions. Make sure you take your prescription. If you take your prescription, guaranteed, you're going to get cured quickly. Optimal healing. So it's not the teaching. It's the misapplication of the teaching. Even to this point here, there's an amazing ability of the scriptures to literally predict everything. Okay? Follow me on this, right? So here in the Bhagavatam, this chapter is entitled The Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening. Okay? So as we've said, this conversation is taking place. Kashyapa is saying, I'm prepared to unite with you, but let's just wait a while, honey, right? Let's do it a bit later on. And he's giving all the reasons why she doesn't listen. So Kashyapa and Diti, who did they give birth to? Yeah. Demons, right? Kadama Muni and Devahuti give birth to whom? Who is the Supreme Personality of God? Can you get more of a contrast than that? Demon or divinity? So again, this idea, we can do what we want, but you can't break Krishna's laws. No way. You can only break yourself against the laws. So someone who's actually intelligent, they'll think, let me do what Krishna says, because he's my well-wisher. So if he says, move in this direction, and I move in that direction, even if it seems difficult, it will always give me the best outcome. Now, let's look at this. Best outcome when? Okay? We know the modes are there. In the mode of ignorance, things are as bad as they look. In the mode of passion, things are temporarily better than they look. Right? You want to see the mode of passion? Look outside of your window. Right? So people will do something, it looks good in the beginning, and the whole thing falls apart later on. So in the mode of passion, things are initially better than they look. Right? And in the mode of goodness, right, things are actually, in the mode of passion, things are better than they look. In the mode of goodness, things are actually looking a certain way, but you have much, much deep content. The mode of goodness, and I'm not talking about the material aspect alone. I'm talking about practicing Krishna consciousness in the mode of goodness. You'll see this in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There is a point that is made in one of the verses where you first come to the mode of goodness and then you let go of the mode of goodness for transcendence. Yeah, there's sometimes this idea that we can jump over the modes. I'm in ignorance and suddenly I'm going to become transcendental. Good luck. Good luck to you. It doesn't quite work that way. So at this point about prediction, see, what happens is they unite at the wrong time. And therefore, we find out that they give birth to very negative entities, right? Now, let's extrapolate. So when we think about the modern world, do people have any sense about timing? What do you think? None, right? Many times people will engage in union, intoxicated, taking drugs, taking alcohol, so many things. So let's extrapolate. So what type of living entities are likely to be brought into the planet with that kind of connection? What do you think? Very, very negative, right? So it's a very, very powerful point. You can do whatever you want, but the idea that that you can just, I'll just do whatever I feel like doing, and everything will turn out okay, that's insane. That's insane. Even in a cultured or high-class setting, there are standards, there's an etiquette, there's a way of doing things, right? There's some clubs, some societies, fraternities, you have to act a certain way to even get in. They watch you first of all and they think, okay, this person knows how to behave, we can offer him or her an opportunity to be part of the team. And if you don't have the caliber, basically what is it they say, I'm not sure if you say this in America, but in London, they say if your name's not down, you're not coming in. Right? If your name's not down, you're not coming in. So this is the Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada says you have to become conscious before you can become Krishna conscious. So if we take this teaching seriously, you can save yourself so much trouble you couldn't even imagine. Right? That's the beauty of this transcendental mode. Krishna explains, this is how my energy works. Right? I'm explaining it to you. You press this button, this is the result you get. You press this button, you get this result. You press this button, you get this result. Now that you understand how the machine works, now you choose what button you want to press. Okay? And what's meant to happen is we're meant to be sane enough to understand, okay, I understand. The button that's marked Krishna consciousness, that's the only button that gives a good outcome. Right? That's the point. That's the button that gives me the result that I actually want. What does everyone want? We're Ananda Maya Vyasat. We're pleasure-seeking by nature. See, it's this whole thing about sex desire. How are people going to control sex desire? You're only going to control sex desire. We're only going to control sex desire. Paramdrisva nivartate. There has to be a higher taste. Right? There has to be a higher taste. And that higher taste is going to come, why? It's going to come by surrendering to Krishna. Let's make it very real. How many of you've been in a kirtan and it's a good kirtan, you actually can say, you can honestly say, I felt blissful. Raise your hands. Yeah. Now think about that. You have someone who's never been in kirtan before and you tell them, look, I'm going to ask you to sit down. The dude in front of you with the harmonium, which looks like a kind of ancient instrument, right? That person's going to play, and he or they're just going to sing the same words again and again, and you'll love it. They'll think, you must be crazy. You've lost your mind, right? Right? No way. But actually, it doesn't matter what they think. That's the whole point. It's not what we think. You see, you get this kind of relative thing in modern society. Well, I've got my opinion. You've got your... No, gravity works for everyone, honey. Right? You have whatever opinion you like. It's like a child. The child says, I don't think fire will burn me. Good luck. Good luck. Fire will objectively burn. These holy names, they will objectively bring you to that blissful platform if you chant them properly. That's it. There are absolute realities. That's how the world really works. So the trouble with many of us in the modern world is we're in denial. And it's a big problem. And then what happens is people do stupid things in the beginning, and you can see that's dumb. Right? What you've done, that's dumb. And what's going to happen later on, you're going to have to pay for it. You see? And then the person, when all the issues hit them later on, then they're like, I don't understand. Why does God do this to me? It's like, well, no, God didn't do it to you. You did it to yourself. Yeah? That's the way it is. No one told you to press that button. Yeah? So we should be conscious like that. We have the opportunity to even navigate the material world in such a way that it does not harass us so much. And moreover, that's a side effect, right? That's the aparavidya, the knowledge about how the material energy works. But even more significant is the paravidya, the knowledge about how the spiritual world works, the spiritual energy works. So this is the opportunity for us. And if we can do this for ourselves, then we can shine a light for the entire planet. Okay? Let's be very honest. If you expect people to take the Krishna consciousness and they come and they're initially exploring and they see that a lot of these people who are so-called doing this process, wow, they're dysfunctional. Then intelligent people are going to think twice, isn't it? Because what they're actually looking at is, if I do what you're doing, I'm going to become like you. So now the question is, do I want to be like you? Okay? Like that. So we want to be the change that we want to see in other people. Okay? And we want to honor Krishna's instructions. It's not a belief system. Let's be very clear about that. Krishna is explaining how his creation works. And the reason why he can explain it so well is because he made it. Yeah? That's the point. So when he says, this is how the modes work, it's his modes. Right? When he says, this is what happens when you do things at this timing, it's his arrangement, it's his material world, it's his material energy. So if we understand that, you're being given it's like insider dealing. Right? Someone's telling you how the whole system works. I'm going to raise stocks, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You can take advantage of it if you want to. So we want to encourage all of us, we want to encourage ourselves and others to really take this teaching seriously. Yeah? Don't cause yourself unnecessary difficulty in spiritual life. Try to understand how Krishna makes this world work, what Krishna expects of you through Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, and lean into it. And always remember, when you have doubts, remember that the person who's giving this teaching, they what? Trikalagya, they know past, present, and future. They know you, and they've created everything, and they're in charge of everything. And one of the most important things to know about Krishna is he loves you more than you love yourself. So if you follow the direction of the all-powerful and all-loving person, man, you've hit the jackpot. Right? There's no question you will have the greatest experiences, plural, not one. You will have the greatest experiences, the greatest journey, the greatest revelations. It's game over. That's the point. And when we find ourselves not doing it, we need to look at why. We need to recognize, okay, that means if I'm not following, it means I don't really believe that Krishna is actually has my best interests at heart. You know, like sometimes people have this tendency, one thing for Krishna, one thing for me. Right? 2 things for Krishna, 2 things for me. Right? Or actually today, I'll do 5 things for Krishna, 1 thing for me, because it's his birthday, it's Janmashtami, right? Yeah? It's like a little special treat for Krishna. Yeah, this is the point. Krishna wants to help us more than we want to help ourselves. That's the real purport. He loves us more than we love ourselves. And our intelligence should be to take full advantage of his mercy by full surrender to Krishna. And surrender, again, is a journey. Right? So every day, I just want to try and chant that little bit better, that little bit more attentively. That's surrender. I want to try and hear the Bhagavatam, right? And reflect on it just that little bit more attentively. That's surrender. I want to try to engage in some activity for Krishna with a service attitude. That's surrender. I want to tune into and align with the instructions that were given to be my spiritual master and to really lean into that. What is it Prabhupada said? He said his success, he accounted it to what? He said, I made the order of my spiritual master my life and soul. That's faith. That's surrender. And just as we see in the life of Prabhupada and practically every great acharya, I repeat, just as we see in the life of Prabhupada and practically every great acharya, then Krishna, as we give ourselves to him wisely, not stupidly, not sentimentally, you'll see how he will reciprocate and exchange in amazing and miraculous ways, much more than we can ever conceive of. Okay, so we'll stop there. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Janitha Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Paul. I guess we have some time for questions, comments.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. In the beginning of the class, you're mentioning about being sane enough, like to take to Krishna consciousness. So I was just wondering some of your recommendations or thoughts and experiences. How do you help people that are coming and they're interested in Krishna consciousness, but they're not at that point where they're sane enough yet to fully surrender or fully take up? Sometimes you just want to kind of jump in there and force them to take to Krishna consciousness, but you can't, of course. So what's some of your recommendations?
People need to see that Krishna cares about them through the care that you extend. Influence means relationship, actually. Right? You see, right now we live in a world of big data, artificial intelligence, and I was speaking to one devotee about this yesterday. I think he even studied something in this area. And why is it in some ways so dangerous? It's because through using these systems, they can fully understand where you are in your life and how you tick, right? So in the material, so in terms of the whole idea of social media and so on, it's actually called persuasive design. Okay, so they use even the colors that they use, right? YouTube, the red, that's not an accident, right? Because the red color stimulates your mentality in a certain way, right? The color green has a different effect. So when many of you will have WhatsApp, so sometimes when someone's typing you a message on WhatsApp or they're recording something, you'll see a little green sentence that says someone is, so-and-so is typing or so-and-so is recording. That's designed to keep you hooked. Someone's typing. I'm about to get a message. It's to cause us to be more conditioned. So they use the understanding of the individual to see how to find a way to fully connect and then reel that person in. Now that's the perverted reflection. But the original expression of that is that we're meant to understand individuals so that we can better serve them. Prabhupada told his disciples when they were going to do the university preaching, what did he say to them? He said, do not go to the universities preaching to them that this Krishna consciousness is all rules and regulations. That's what he said to them. He said, explain to them that this is a higher philosophy. Right? Prabhupada, he was brilliant at marketing. When he came to the West, what did he do? He wanted to just understand the mentality of the people so he could see, now I get what they're like. Then I know how to present the philosophy in a way that they can connect to it. Okay? So the point is, get to know. Build relationship. Right? And then you can explain it, because you can explain Krishna consciousness in so many different ways. Right? Then you can explain it in a way which is relevant to people, relevant to that particular person. And when we do that, that is what it means to be personal. Oftentimes what we do is we will explain the philosophy in the way that works for us, which is impersonal, because I'm projecting the way that I am onto everyone else. And if they don't accept it, wow, man, you're in Maya, You're really in Maya. I gave you my best lines, you didn't accept it. You must be really lost, dude. Like that. No, not at all. Prabhupada, he was speaking to Mensa. Mensa is a high IQ society. And they asked him a question. They said, is God so great that he can create something which is so heavy that even he can't lift it? And Prabhupada said, yes. He said, God is so great that he can create something which is so heavy that even he can't lift it. And then he can lift it. It just blew their minds. Right? Prabhupada, he gave a talk at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. And there, what did he call Krishna consciousness? He said Krishna consciousness means spiritual technology. Right? Because it's a Massachusetts Institute of Technology, so he called Krishna consciousness spiritual technologies, just to put it in their language. That's how we do it. Does that answer your question? Thank you for your question. Any other questions or comments? If you could pass the microphone, please.
Hare Krishna. I was wondering if you could help us understand how important is for us to come to the mode of goodness to transcend the modes, because generally it is seen or we hear that if we are passionate in materialistic life, then we just engage passion for Krishna, then automatically you come to your transcendental. So how much of it is important for us to take steps in our life to come to mode of goodness, then we can actually progress?
Very good question. There's a lot of misunderstanding about this. For someone who wants to, if you want to get deep into this topic, there's a seminar by Shiv Ram Swami on the modes of material nature. You can find it on YouTube. You can also find it on his audio page on his website. It's a real science. There are statements where Prabhupada, there are many statements, many purports, verses, where Prabhupada is explaining that we're meant to get to the point of practicing devotional service from the platform of goodness. Now let me explain that, because there's a nuance to it. Devotional service itself is transcendental, right? The Nava Anga Bhakti is actually transcendental, okay? So the Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, those things are transcendental. So you could say that the medicine is transcendental, okay? But your body that the medicine is going in may not be transcendental, you see? So you want to get your body in a state where it's most receptive to the medicine, okay? So consider the body to be like our lifestyle. So the medicine, Krishna consciousness, is transcendental. But whether we are at that platform where we can take it, or how receptive we are, that's a different factor. So when it's referring to practicing devotional service in the mode of goodness, it's like this. To give an example. Let's say that someone lives a very erratic lifestyle. They're completely unregulated. They're very greedy, and they're very rude or pushy. Can they still practice Krishna consciousness? They absolutely can, right? But will their speed of progression be very fast if they're always dysregulated, erratic, and harsh with other people? Yes or no? No. You won't even get the blessings of the devotees. Devotees will be like, I just need to avoid that person because he's so pushy, controlling, but he's still practicing Krishna consciousness. He is chanting. He does come to the temple, right? So the medicine he's taking, it is a transcendental medicine. But because his mentality is so much in the mode of passion, it will take longer for the medicine to cure him, right? It's nothing to do with the medicine. It's to do with his receptivity. For example, another example. Okay, I wash some clothes, and I'm going to put my clothes on the hanger to dry. Okay, now, if I'm putting those clothes on the hanger and it's Indian summertime, will it take long for those clothes to dry? No. The sun is there, and therefore it's going to dry those clothes. Now you try doing that in London, right? I wash my clothes, I put them on the line. I could be there the next day. Nothing, right? But it's the same sun. It's not the sun that's changed. It's my position in relationship to the sun that's changed. Right? That's the point. It's my position in relation to the sun. The sun is Krishna. His potency doesn't change. Okay, but where you are situated relative to him, that's a different factor. Right? So someone in the mode of ignorance who takes the Krishna consciousness, there's a lot of stuff that they have to change. Right? Someone in the mode of passion who takes the Krishna consciousness, okay, but still some things that need to adjust. Someone who takes to it from the mode of goodness, right? Already clean, already respectful of authority, already regulated, right? Already vegetarian. I remember before I became a vegetarian, I had this Christian friend. Her name was Grace. So we were at college together. So we were studying. And I remember one day she said to me, because she was vegetarian, right? She was a Christian, but she just felt, somehow in her heart, she felt it's important not to eat animals. So we were studying. I think we were revising for some exam. And she said to me one day, she said, you know what? I really think that people who eat meat, it makes them more aggressive. And I was like, rubbish. That was my response, right? Because I was eating meat at the time. I had no idea. But now I reflect upon it, Now that I don't do that, I can see, yeah, it definitely has an effect on your consciousness. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes people are so close to something, they don't really see the effect. Right? And you know, the classic thing is I always get this complaint, and it came on this trip from someone. Sometimes Prabhu, the non-devotees act better than the devotees, right? It's that classic line. And I said to the person, I said, honestly, I don't think you're seeing things properly. And I pointed out to them, I said, often when people say that, what they're doing is that they're comparing a devotee in the mode of ignorance to a non-devotee in the mode of goodness. Right? I said, when devotees say, sometimes the non-devotees act better, I said, you're not comparing them to Radha Maharaj. You're not comparing them to Srila Prabhupada. You're comparing them to that devotee that you don't like. Right? If you want to make a fair comparison, fine, make a fair comparison. Compare the devotee in the mode of ignorance to the non-devotee in the mode of ignorance. Compare the devotee in the mode of goodness to the non-devotee in the mode of goodness. Compare the devotee in the mode of passion to the non-devotee in the mode of passion. Then make that comparison and see where that gets you. Anyway, that's an aside. But my point is that until we come to the platform where we are fully transcendental, when we're still in the stage of being sadhakas, practitioners, right, then we have to actually understand that. And you'll see, if you look at the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, Prabhupada in the first section of that, where he's writing, he talks about how the modes of material nature, how they act, how they bind, and how they give liberation. That's what he actually says, how they give liberation. And when he says how they give liberation, what he means is if you use the mode of goodness, right, if you live in the mode of goodness, then you can actually engage in Krishna consciousness in such a way that you make faster progress. That's actually what happens. Now, you have to also bear in mind one other thing. If there's a very strong sense of passion, we have to engage it. If it's so strong that we can't give it up, we have to engage it. And by engaging it, we then purify it. Okay? So the point is, there's some areas of our life where we can practice goodness. We can be regulated, we can be clean, we can be truthful. There'll be some things like, I'm just so ambitious, Prabhu. I'm ambitious. Okay, engage your ambition in Krishna's service. Right? What's meant to happen, and I remember Chandamali Maharaj spoke about this, I think it's in first canto Bhagavatam. The spiritual master is meant to look at the disciple and give the disciple a service, instructions according to the disciple's nature. Right? So Prabhupada would sometimes see disciples, they have a certain propensity, and these are deeply ingrained propensities, and they're not sinful. So then he'd engage that propensity in Krishna's service. That's no problem. Yeah? So does that answer your question? Okay, thank you very much. I saw the hand there, and I'll come to you. And feel free to let me know when we're over time, okay?
Hey,
Okay.
thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Actually,
Krishna.
I have 2 questions and an observation. The first question is like extension to this question. Can a person be in fully mode of goodness? Because Sri Krishna book says that a person is made up of all the 3 elements. So I feel personally it's the delicate balance. And as you suggested that the passion should be made engaged into like mode of goodness. So I would love to hear your thoughts.
A person usually has a mixture of different modes. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the modes vie for supremacy. That means, for example, at some points people are more influenced by passion. Like when you're in the countryside, you may be more influenced by goodness sometimes, right? But the point is there's usually a mode which is predominant, right? So even though there's a mixture of different modes, you'll usually find at a particular time, a particular mode is more powerfully influencing that person. But to be honest, if we just follow the program that Srila Prabhupada has given, everything will come. I'll give you a very powerful example. Well, 2 things. Consider that the morning hours are like gold. That's a mode of goodness hours, right? The afternoon hours are like silver, and the evening hours are like bronze. So just by sleeping and rising early, what you're actually doing is you're suffusing, or you're bringing more sattvic energy into your consciousness. And because you're doing that by sleeping early and rising early, you're actually bringing more of the mode of goodness into your mind. And because the Bhagavatam explains the mind is produced from the mode of goodness. So therefore, the mind only functions optimally in the mode of goodness. So when people live too much of a passionate lifestyle or an ignorant lifestyle, they're more susceptible to all kinds of mental health challenges. You see? When one lives a more sattvic lifestyle, the mind becomes more strong. It becomes stronger. It becomes more focused. It becomes more tolerant. It's easier to think. It's easier to deal with people. like that, yeah? But whatever modes are so strong, if we engage in the process and engage those energies in a way that's favorable, no problem. That is one of the reasons why Prabhupada, even in the early days, he would see the devotees, they're very passionate bodies, so yeah, they have to engage that energy. You know, you tell a young person, just sit down and be quiet and just, you know, it doesn't work. What you do is you say, dance enthusiastically in the kirtan, right? Go out on book distribution, dance on the Harinam. You've got all this energy in your young body. That energy has to find a healthy spiritual outlet. You see? But that's the key point. You have to give a healthy spiritual outlet for that energy. And if you do that, it will naturally become spiritualized. Yeah? Sometimes devotees are struggling because they've got all this energy and there's no healthy outlet for that energy. And therefore it's just getting frustrated and getting, you know, all this restlessness. The other thing which is interesting, Prabhupada says in one lecture, he says, you are restless because you do not read my books. Isn't that interesting? What that means, restlessness means passion. One of the easiest ways to quickly elevate oneself to the platform of goodness and then to the pure platform is to study the Bhagavatam. Right? And that's stated directly in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2. Right? It's talking about devotional service and how the modes of ignorance and passion are quickly eliminated. So these things are there. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much. The second question I have is like, when you spoke about individuality having like the principles, values and goals and aligning them with Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, speaking about the individuality, will it give rise to ego?
Sorry?
Will it give rise to ego at some point of time? My personal experience, I read Gita 7 years back. I read that the intent matters, have good intent. And I never feared Maya, not speaking in a cocky way, but I just had faith in Krishna that even if Maya comes to me, I'll be like out of it. And though I'm in first world country, I'm still in the temple. So
Yeah, so the first thing is individuality is a reality. It doesn't matter whether people agree with it or don't agree. We're all eternally individuals, right? So we have only two options. You either have false ego or real ego. That's it. You know, there's no other way around it. But identity is always there. Now, for us, it's important we identify as devotees. In fact, everything you do is all based upon your identity, right? The actions that people engage in are based upon identity. So Madhurya Kadambini talks about a gradual spiritualization of the identity, right? So wherever we are, whatever stage we're in, we want to identify, I'm a servant of Krishna. Now, when we become pure, we'll understand specifically who we are in the spiritual world and what service we do specifically for Krishna. Right? But even in the beginning stages, I'm a servant of Krishna. If I identify as a servant, I will find that I tend to engage in the activities of devotion because those are the activities that align with my identity. Right? But just because I recognize that I'm an individual, that's not false ego necessarily. Right? False ego is when I feel that I'm better than other people, that I'm the controller, that I'm the enjoyer, and that actually God is meant to serve me, for example, rather than I'm the servant of Krishna. So real ego is fundamentally that Jivaras Rupoy Krishnera Nityadas. Real ego is fundamentally that I am a servant of Krishna and all the activities that come from that identity. That's a manifestation of real ego. So when we practice that, we're like a child who's forgotten their identity. By practicing the things that child used to do, they start to think, oh yeah, I used to play tennis. I remember that. This seems familiar somehow. By doing the activities of devotion, we are reminding or reawakening our real dormant identity. Yeah? Okay. Thank you. If you could pass the microphone to this gentleman, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So earlier you mentioned two things, kind of elaborating an allusion to Diti and Kasyapa. And you said there's two things. Diti is representing the temptation of material energy, and Kasyapa is the weakness of the living entity. I was wondering how we define weakness in Krishna consciousness, because in some ways we're kind of admitting, Krishna, or to Guru or to Shastra or Sadhu that I am weak
Yes.
and I need help. So how do we actually define weakness when it comes in terms of us being contaminated again into material energy?
Yeah. The weakness is the degree to which we have not taken shelter. Yeah? That's what makes us weak. Spiritual strength actually means the degree to which someone has fully taken shelter. So Prabhupada, he's fixed in eternity. There's a pastime, there's many memories of Prabhupada. And there's one pastime I was listening to, I think a few months ago. And Prabhupada had asked someone to massage him, one of his disciples. So Prabhupada sits down, and the person's massaging him, and they were saying, Prabhupada, his body was rock solid. They couldn't move him. You know, they're pushing, and Prabhupada says, push harder. And it's just like, he's just like an anvil. You know, so it's like you're pushing, it's just so fixed. You know, and that would make sense because he's fixed in eternity. He's not wavering. There's no doubts. It's not like, you know, maybe this Krishna consciousness isn't the right way to live life, and you know, maybe I'm wasting my time. He's fixed. So to the extent that one is taking full shelter, to that extent they're solid. That's what it means, spiritual strength. It means to be a full recipient and instrument of Krishna's own potency. So when you're fully aligned with Krishna, you can do anything. They asked Prabhupada, if Bhaktivinoda Thakur was so powerful, why didn't he spread this mission himself to the Western world? Prabhupada's response, he said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is all powerful. He could spread this mission all over the world by himself. He simply decided out of his mercy to leave something for us to do. That's how it works. So weakness is actually our exposure to the material energy. To the extent that I haven't taken shelter, to that extent I'm actually weak because I'm exposed. You see? So you can use this analogy. It's raining outside. Krishna's on one side of the road with a big umbrella. He says, come under the umbrella, then you won't feel the rain. Some people, they're fully under the umbrella, like Prabhupada. You can touch them, they're completely dry. Right? Completely dry. The clothes are dry, the skin's dry, everything's dry. Some people, they're drenched. They're fully exposed. You have a few people, they're moving towards the umbrella. You have some people, sometimes, when many people get under the umbrella, sometimes you're with your friends and it's raining, and you try and crouch under the umbrella, but some of you's exposed, some of you's covered, right? So some of your clothes get wet, part of your clothes get wet, but some of you's dry. So it's also like that. So these stages, from Shraddha to Prema, you can consider it's different degrees of which people are completely under the umbrella. Okay? And even when someone's under the umbrella initially, it still takes a while for their clothes to dry. Right? So someone's taken shelter, but now it takes a while for their consciousness to catch up. Right? I'm in the activities of full surrender, but it takes a while to completely dry, to experience the evaporation of the previous exposure that I had. Does that make some sense? Okay, thank you very much. Do we have time for 2 more questions? It's up to the organizers.
I think we're running a little late.
Okay.
So we'd like to thank Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu for coming and giving the Srimad Bhagavatam class.
Thank you.
So tomorrow there's actually one more opportunity for Prabhu will be coming back here to give a little Sangha session in the Lotus Room for all the devotees. So if you'd like to come for that, that's at 12 to 1:30. And there'll be prasadam afterwards. So. And you can, and there'll be time for ask questions and clarifications, and then he'll be heading off to London. So, and we hope Prabhu comes back to spend some more time here with us.
I'll definitely come back.
Yes.
I'll definitely come back.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Radha Govinda ki jai. Janita Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.
His Grace Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.